Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we sift through that absolute flood of global news and information. And we use our sources to really boil it down, giving you the essential insights you need to stay ahead.
Yeah, distilling it down. This week, it's been quite a ride, hasn't it? We're going from the deepest oceans to deep space and then right into the thick of global politics.
Absolutely. And technology, too. Some big ambitions hitting some awkward realities.
That's right. Our goal today is clarity. We're pulling out the key takeaways from some amazing science, think the most powerful particle ever detected out, and also looking at the really tense political games, potential government shutdowns, shifting alliances. It's a lot.
It is a lot. So you're going to get the full picture, the context behind the headlines.
Exactly. So You're not just informed, you understand why it matters.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with the really cutting-edge stuff, science. And this one, it feels like it's straight out of science fiction ghost particles and maybe, just maybe, a hidden universe.
Let's start deep underwater in the Mediterranean Sea. There's this incredible project called KM3NET. That's Kilometer Cubic Neutrino Telescope.
Right, big network of detectors down there.
Huge. And they've just detected something amazing. The single most energetic neutrino ever seen. Ever.
Okay, hang on. Neutrinos, remind us, what are these ghost particles everyone talks about?
Okay, so neutrinos are fundamental particles. Tiny. Almost no mass, no electric charge, and they hardly ever interact with anything. Billions fly through you, through the Earth, every single second. Just zip. Gone. That's why they call them ghost particles.
And they come from really violent places.
Exactly. Think exploding stars supernovae, or those supermassive black holes gobbling up matter at the center of galaxies. Really extreme cosmic events create them. And they travel almost at the speed of light, carrying information straight from those events.
So this specific detection, KM3230213A, they're calling it, the energy level is the big news.
That's the key. It clocked in around 200 peta-electron volts.
Pay.
Which means, how big is that? Okay, put it this way. It's about 20 times stronger than the previous record holder for neutrino energy. 20 times.
Wow.
And the fact that KM3NET, which isn't even fully finished yet, caught this,
Sure.
It's incredible. It tells us the detectors are working and they're extremely sensitive. It came from some unknown cosmic ray interaction way out there.
Okay, so beyond just breaking a record, why is finding one super energetic ghost particle so important? What does it actually tell us?
Well, it's huge for neutrino astronomy, obviously, but it points towards the universe's most powerful particle accelerators. Places that make stuff way more energetic than anything we can build.
Like what kind of places?
We don't know for sure yet. That's the exciting part. By tracing this neutrino back, hopefully, researchers might find sources we couldn't see before with regular telescopes, a kind of hidden universe.
Okay.
And, crucially, this level of sensitivity. It could give us clues about where cosmic rays come from, what happens in gravitational wave events, and this is the really big one. Maybe help crack the mystery of dark matter?
Wait, dark matter. How does a neutrino connect to dark matter? That seems like a leap.
Well, it's theoretical, but stick with me. If we can find the source of this 200 PeV neutrino, say, a specific galaxy cluster or black hole, we study everything about it. Some theories suggest dark matter particles might, just might, interact in ways that produce high-energy neutrinos when they decay or collide.
Ah, I see. So this super energetic neutrino is like a potential fingerprint?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's a rare window. If we find more like this, and they come from places with certain characteristics, it could be evidence supporting those dark matter theories, could, completely change our understanding of cosmology.
Fascinating. Okay, from the invisible universe to something we can see, sort of, mapping our own galaxy, the Milky Way, there's new work on that too?
Yeah, really cool visualization stuff. Researchers have developed a new technique to map out star-forming regions, stellar nurseries in much more detail.
So it's not just a static picture.
Exactly. It lets them explore the actual processes, the dynamics of how stars are born, the gravitational tug-of-war shaping those beautiful spiral arms. It turns all that complex data into these, almost like movies of star birth.
Yeah.
Really helps understand the galaxy's structure.
Nice. Now, for those of us who like to look up ourselves, any upcoming celestial events?
Definitely. Mark September 21st, 2025. There's going to be a partial solar eclipse.
Ah, but visibility depends on where you are, right?
It does. But don't worry if you're not in the path. Lots of observatories and science groups will stream it live online so everyone can catch it.
Good tip. And I heard something about Saturn looking particularly good right now, this weekend.
Yeah, Saturn is putting on a real show. It's offering some of the best views of 2025.
Why now?
Because of a neat alignment. You can actually see the shadow of Titan, its biggest moon, crossing the rings.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it makes the rings and the planet look extra bright and dramatic.
Yeah.
Great time for anyone with even a small telescope.
And speaking of gear for looking at the sky or anything else, there's a deal coinciding with this.
A bit of commercial timing, perhaps? The Sony a7 III camera, which is really popular, is apparently $400 off right now.
Ah.
Times nicely with people maybe thinking about astrophotography, especially with the Hunter's Moon coming up in October. A little synergy there.
Okay, let's shift focus from looking at space to actually going there, back to the moon with NASA's Artemis program. NASA is the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, of course.
Right, and Artemis II, that's the big one, the first crewed mission of the program, still on track for 2026.
And they're working on the Orion spacecraft down at Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
They are. Right now, a lot of focus is on safety systems, critical stuff.
Like the launch abort system, the LAS, that thing sounds crucial. How does it work?
It's basically a giant ejector seat for the whole capsule. It's this 44-foot tower on top of the crew module.
44 feet, wow.
Yeah, and it has 3 incredibly powerful solid rocket motors inside. If anything goes wrong during launch or the initial climb on that massive Space Launch System rocket, the LAS fires instantly. It generates enough force to yank the entire Orion capsule, astronauts and all, away from the exploding or failing rocket, get them clear.
So pulls them up and away?
Exactly. Fast. Once they're safely clear of the dangerous part of the ascent, they jettison the LAS to save weight for the trip to the moon. It's a pretty amazing piece of rapid response engineering.
And it's not just NASA. The private sector is jumping into the moon race, too. Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' company, has a big NASA partnership.
Yeah, a really important one. Blue Origin is contracted to land NASA's Viper rover on the moon in 2027. Viper stands for Volatiles Investigating Polar Exploration Rover.
Volatiles, meaning ice. They're looking for water.
Primarily water ice, yeah, especially near the lunar South Pole and those permanently shadowed craters. The goal is to map out exactly where the ice is and how much there might be.
And finding ice there isn't just about, having something for future astronauts to drink, is it?
Oh, it's much bigger than that. Lunar ice is potentially the key to a whole deep space economy.
How so?
Because you can split water H2O into hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen for breathing, obviously. But hydrogen and oxygen are also the main components of rocket fuel.
Ah, so the moon becomes a gas station.
Pretty much. If you can mine ice on the moon and process it into propellant there, it makes future missions to Mars elsewhere vastly cheaper and easier. You don't have to haul all that fuel up from Earth. It's fundamental for long-term human presence and exploration.
Makes sense. And speaking of infrastructure, just connecting the globe, SpaceX keeps launching those Starlink satellites, right?
Relentlessly. They just sent up another batch of 24 Starlink internet satellites from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California.
Just adding more to the constellation.
Yep. It's all part of their plan for truly global broadband coverage. Getting high-speed internet to places that are currently underserved or totally offline. It's a continuous build-out. Hashtag 1.3 consumer tech and corporate ambitions.
Okay, let's come back down to earth. Consumer tech. And things got, a bit awkward for Meta this week at their big Connect 2025 event. Their new AR glasses launch didn't exactly go smoothly.
No, it didn't. They launched the new Meta Ray-Ban Display smart glasses. These have actual displays integrated into the lenses for augmented reality, AR.
Right, the next step beyond just audio and camera.
Exactly. But during the live demo, Mark Zuckerberg, Meta's CEO, was trying to show off key features, and it just kept glitching. Technical difficulties, awkward pauses, it didn't look good.
Yeah, I saw clips. It looked like maybe the conference Wi-Fi was failing or something. Classic demo problem.
That's what many thought.
Yeah.
But later, Meta's chief technology officer, Andrew Bosworth, came out and said, nope, it wasn't the Wi-Fi.
Oh, what was it then?
He claimed it was a distributed denial of service attack, a DDoS attack.
Seriously, a DDoS attack during the keynote.
That's what Bosworth said. And specifically, targeting Meta's internal demonstration servers that were running the demo for the stage, not the public Wi-Fi.
Wait, an attack on their own internal servers at their biggest event? That sounds worse than bad Wi-Fi, doesn't it? Raises some serious questions.
It absolutely does. If Meta's own internal, presumably hardened servers for a major global launch can be taken down by a DDoS attack, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence in the security and stability of the massive, always-on AR metaverse they want us all to live in, does it?
No, it really doesn't. Definitely takes the shine off the launch.
For sure. It fuels the skepticism about whether the infrastructure is really ready for this kind of immersive tech.
Glitches aside, though, Meta is clearly all in on AR. They're also pushing that neural wristband tech, right?
Yeah, that's their vision for how we'll control these AR experiences eventually. The wristband is designed to pick up tiny nerve signals from your wrist, like the intention to move a finger or tap even before you actually move much.
So subtle control without big gestures or talking all the time.
That's the idea. Translate those tiny signals into commands for the glasses. But, it also brings up huge ethical questions about collecting that kind of detailed biometric data. That conversation needs to happen now as the tech develops.
Definitely. Okay, let's switch gears to Apple. They seem to be taking a very different path with AI, focusing more on privacy.
Very different strategy. Apple's big push with iOS 26 is for local AI models, using something they call the Foundation Models API.
Local meaning it runs on your iPhone or iPad itself, not in the cloud.
Exactly. The key AI processing happens right there on your device. Your data doesn't constantly get sent off to Apple's servers or somewhere else.
Which is a big deal for privacy, obviously. What kind of things can this local AI do?
Well, developers are already building features like really fast on-device text summarization, condense a long report without it leaving your phone. Also things like adjusting the tone of your messages, removing clutter from photos automatically, generating personalized content suggestions, all happening locally. It's faster, and it keeps your stuff private.
And they're helping developers build this stuff, too.
Yeah, Xcode 26, their development tool, has better support for generative AI now. Developers can even plug in their own ChatGPT API keys if they want, mixing cloud power with local processing. Gives them flexibility.
Interesting contrast to the cloud-first approach of others. Now, shifting to hardware innovation, this cooling system from Johns Hopkins sounds potentially revolutionary. CHEAT.
Yeah, CHEAT stands for Cooler with High Efficiency and Scalability. It's developed by the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, and it is potentially a very big deal. It's a solid-state refrigeration system.
Solid state, meaning no moving parts, no gases.
Exactly. No toxic chemical refrigerants like in your current fridge or air conditioner. It works using something called the Peltier effect.
Right, I've heard of that. Can you break down how it works, simply?
Sure. Basically, you run an electric current across a junction between two specific types of materials, usually semiconductors. When you do that, heat gets moved from one side of the junction to the other. One side gets cold, the other gets hot.
All electronically.
All electronically. The CSS system uses special nano-engineered materials to make this effect super efficient. And the headline number is amazing. They say it nearly doubles the efficiency of traditional cooling materials at room temperature.
Doubles efficiency. That's huge.
Yeah.
The energy savings globally could be massive.
Immense. Think about all the energy used for air conditioning, refrigeration, data centers. Plus, being solid state means it's quieter, likely more durable, and no risk of refrigerant leaks, which are bad for the environment.
So applications everywhere. Homes, industry, that
Yeah.
space.
Absolutely. Household appliances, obviously, but also specialized uses where efficiency and reliability are critical, like cooling sensitive electronics or, systems for space exploration. It's really promising technology.
Okay, finally in this section, let's look at the startup world. TechCrunch Disrupt 2025 is coming up soon in San Francisco.
Yeah, end of October 27th to 29th. It's a major global gathering for tech founders, investors, big companies, expecting like 10,000 people.
And the main event is always the startup battlefield competition.
That's the centerpiece. They pick 200 promising early-stage startups, the Startup Battlefield 200. Then they narrow it down to 20 finalists who compete live on stage.
For a big prize.
A $100,000 equity-free prize, which is huge for an early startup. The companies this year are coming from key areas like AI, biotech, fintech, sustainability, all the hot sectors.
And the judges aren't messing around, I assume.
Definitely not. You've got top VCs like Thomas Crane from Azelle, Charles Hudson from Precursor Ventures. They're looking for real innovation, a solid business model, scalability, potential for profit, but also increasingly positive social impact.
Makes sense. And a quick note for anyone involved, deadline for hosting side events?
Crucial point. That deadline is today, September 19th. Those side events, the mixers, the smaller pitch sessions around the main conference, they're super important for visibility. So if you're planning one, today's the day.
All right, we have to shift gears now to the global stage, geopolitics. And it's incredibly tense right now, starting with the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah, the situation in Gaza is extremely dire. Reports are consistently describing the Israeli military operations there as using unprecedented force.
Which means
Massive destruction of buildings and infrastructure, especially in places like Gaza City, huge numbers of people displaced, and international observers are reporting just devastating casualty figures since the major escalation late last year.
And the world's reaction seems deeply divided, polarized.
Very much so. You see key allies taking completely different stances. For example, French President Emmanuel Macron came out strongly criticizing Israel's offensive. He called the military response disproportionate, focusing on the civilian toll, and he urged an immediate ceasefire.
But the U.S. position is different.
Completely different. At the United Nations Security Council, the U.S. once again used its veto power to block a resolution that called for exactly that, an immediate ceasefire.
Why? What's the U.S. reasoning for blocking ceasefire calls when allies like France are demanding one?
The stated U.S. argument, consistently, is that these kinds of broad ceasefire resolutions don't address the root cause, which they define as the threat from Hamas. They argue it would hamper Israel's right to self-defense. They usually insist any resolution has to condemn Hamas, ensure they can't rearm, things like that. Critics, of course, say this position, combined with strong U.S. support for Israel's peace through strength doctrine, basically gives Israel a green light and removes pressure for de-escalation or diplomacy.
So the Security Council is deadlocked, but other parts of the UN are acting.
Right. When the UNSC is blocked by a veto, sometimes the UN General Assembly steps in, though its resolutions aren't legally binding in the same way.
And they did that this week.
Yes. The UNGA passed a resolution to allow Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to give a video address. This came after the U.S. denied him a visa to come speak in person, citing national security concerns.
And how did that vote go?
Overwhelmingly in favor. 145 countries voted yes. It shows a very strong international current supporting Palestinian representation, even pushing back against U.S. pressure.
And we're also seeing actual changes in diplomatic status, countries recognizing Palestine.
Yes. Portugal just announced it will formally recognize Palestinian statehood.
Boy, now.
They specifically mentioned the terrible humanitarian crisis and also Israel's talk about potentially annexing parts of the West Bank.
Yeah.
And this follows President Macron suggesting earlier that recognizing Palestine might actually be the best way to isolate Hamas, framing it not just morally but strategically.
Trying to bolster moderate Palestinians.
That seems to be the thinking in some European capitals, yeah.
And there was also a very serious report from a UN commission using extremely strong language.
Extremely strong. A UN commission report came out confirming detailed allegations that, they claim, amount to genocide against Palestinians by Israel. They argue that certain actions fit the international legal definitions.
That's obviously a hugely significant charge.
Immense. It ramps up the calls for international accountability and puts even more pressure on countries navigating their relationships in the region, especially given Israel's military actions and the continued solid U.S. backing.
And just briefly, on a related historical note, an arrest was made concerning an old attack in Paris.
Yes, a suspect in that horrific 1982 bombing of the Goldenberg Jewish restaurant in Paris, which killed 6 people, was finally arrested in the West Bank. After decades. A long, long wait for some measure of justice there. Hashtag tag 2.2 U.S. politics and the government shutdown threat. Okay, let's turn to the U.S. Washington, D.C. is once again staring down the barrel of a potential government shutdown. The funding deadline is September 30th.
Right, the end of the fiscal year. What happened this week to push it closer to the edge?
Well, the House of Representatives, which has a Republican majority, managed to pass a temporary funding bill, a stopgap measure. It passed very narrowly, 217 to 212.
And this bill had President Trump's backing, included spending cuts.
Yes, strongly backed by the president, and it included significant cuts that the conservative wing of the GOP demanded.
Yeah,
but
the Senate rejected it.
Immediately, the Senate, controlled by Democrats, voted it down 44 to 48. Democrats were unified against it.
Why? What was their main objection?
They said the House bill stripped out essential funding they wanted, particularly money to restore some Medicaid services and boost subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. They're basically accusing the GOP of prioritizing ideological cuts over health care access.
So, classic partisan standoff. What happens if they don't agree by the 30th? What does a shutdown actually mean for people?
It means non-essential federal government functions stop. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers get furloughed, meaning sent home without pay. National parks close their gates. Things like passport and visa processing can slow down or stop. Military personnel usually keep working, but their pay could be delayed. Essential services like air traffic control, border security, they generally continue, but it causes widespread disruption.
And the political calculation here, who blinks first?
Well, Democrats seem to feel they have leverage, that the public will blame the Republicans if there's a shutdown. And adding to the drama, House Republicans have apparently said they won't even come back to Washington until after October 1st.
Seriously? So they're basically daring the Senate.
It looks that way. Either the Senate passes something the House GOP likes, or they let the shutdown happen and wait it out. High-stakes stuff.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration made some big moves on immigration policy this week, too. Temporary Protected Status, TPS.
Right. Two major changes. First, they officially canceled TPS for Syrian nationals.
People who fled the civil war there.
Exactly. TPS was granted back in 2012. The administration now says conditions in Syria have improved enough that protection isn't needed anymore. So over 6,000 Syrians currently under TPS have just 60 days to leave the U.S. voluntarily, or they could face deportation.
But have conditions really improved that much in Syria? Critics would strongly dispute that.
Oh, vehemently. Human rights groups say Syria is absolutely not safe for returnees, citing ongoing conflict and persecution. So it's a very controversial decision.
And the second TPS move involved Venezuelans.
Yes. The Department of Justice asked the Supreme Court to allow them to end TPS for Venezuelan migrants as well. That affects over 300,000 people.
But wasn't there a court ruling protecting them?
There was. A federal judge had blocked the termination of TPS for Venezuelans. So the administration is taking the fight directly to the Supreme Court, trying to override that judge's decision. It's part of a much broader administration push to end these temporary statuses they feel have gone on too long.
Okay, and then there's the H-1B visa change. This sounds like it could really shake up the tech industry. A massive new fee.
Massive is right. A new $100,000 fee per application for H-1B visas. These are the visas commonly used to bring in skilled foreign workers, especially in tech.
$100,000 per person.
Per application. It's unprecedented. The clear goal is to dramatically reduce the number of foreign workers coming in on these visas.
Critics must be going nuts. What are they calling it?
They're calling it a pay-to-play system. They argue it makes the ability to hire skilled foreign talent dependent entirely on how much money a company has, not on the skills of the worker or the needs of the company.
How does that play out? Doesn't it just make it more expensive for big companies, too?
Well, yes, but think about the difference. For a huge company like Google or Microsoft, $100 K is an expense, but manageable. For a small tech startup trying to hire one crucial engineer from abroad, it's impossible. It completely prices them out.
Ah, so it favors the big players.
Massively. Critics say it basically funnels the best global talent towards the existing tech giants and away from the innovative startups that often drive disruption. It could really stifle competition and slow down innovation outside of big tech.
Wow, that's a policy with huge ripple effects. And finally, on the U.S. politics front, some controversial visuals in D.C.
Yeah, quite striking. Giant banners featuring President Trump's face suddenly appeared on 3 major federal buildings in Washington.
On federal buildings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Predictably, it caused immediate outrage among Democrats and critics, who called it an inappropriate politicization of government property. Just another sign of the really charged political atmosphere. Hashtag 2.3, the Russia-Ukraine conflict and NATO tensions.
Okay, shifting focus again. The war in Ukraine continues, and with it, ongoing tensions between Russia and NATO. NATO being the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. There was an incident in the Baltic this week.
A serious one. Estonia, which is a NATO member bordering Russia, reported that 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets violated its airspace.
MiG-31, these are serious aircraft, right? Interceptors.
Very serious. Fast, long-range, supersonic interceptors. They apparently flew inside Estonian airspace for about 12 minutes. That's not an accident. That's a deliberate provocation.
12 minutes is a long time for an airspace violation. What did NATO do?
NATO's air policing response was immediate. They scrambled F-35 stealth fighters, top-of-the-line NATO jets, to intercept the Russian MiGs.
So they met them in the air?
They did.
Yeah.
Intercepted them quickly. It demonstrates NATO's readiness and that the system works, but it's still a dangerous encounter.
And Estonia is taking this further.
Yes. They're invoking Article 4 of the NATO treaty to hold consultations with allies. Article 4 is used when a member feels its security or independence is threatened.
What's Russia saying?
Moscow denies the violation, which is standard procedure for them. And their foreign ministry spokeswoman even took a verbal shot, suggesting a Lithuanian defense official who'd apparently suggested maybe shooting down infringing jets should find a new career. So the usual denials mixed with a bit of sharp rhetoric.
And on the ground in Ukraine, The reports are still contradictory.
As usual, yes. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed his forces had inflicted heavy losses on the Russians recently and stopped a key Russian push towards the logistics hub of Pokrovsk. He's emphasizing Ukraine's defensive strength.
While Putin?
Russian President Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, spoke about an improvement in Russia's overall military production and output, signaling they're sustaining their war effort and perhaps ramping things up. It's hard to get a clear, unbiased picture.
President Trump's role. He's still pushing for peace talks.
According to the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, yes. Whitaker said Trump's focus is on getting Putin and Zelensky to negotiate directly, without the U.S. imposing specific conditions on either side first. Just get them talking.
Trying to broker a deal.
Seems to be the goal. Although, interestingly, Trump apparently expressed some personal frustration recently, reportedly saying something like, "Putin let me down," because the progress towards talks hasn't been as fast as he expected. Maybe seeing it as a business deal that isn't closing quickly enough.
Meanwhile, European support for Ukraine continues. France made a pledge.
Significant one. France announced its total military and financial aid to Ukraine since the war started in 2022 has reached $8.6 billion. That ongoing support from key European allies is vital for Ukraine.
And a grim side effect of the war, people trying to escape conscription in Ukraine.
Yeah, a tough story out of Poland. Authorities there arrested 2 Ukrainian train drivers and a couple of passengers who were running a smuggling ring.
Smuggling who?
Ukrainian men trying to dodge the military draft. They were apparently charging around $10,000 per person to get them illegally across the border into Poland.
Wow.
It just highlights the intense pressure of Ukraine's conscription drive and the desperate measures some are taking to avoid being sent to the front lines.
Okay, let's move into our final section, looking at culture, some important health news, and shifts in the business world. Hashtag tag 3.1, political violence and media controversies.
We're still seeing ripples from that awful event earlier this month, the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. The investigation continues.
And the weapon used is drawing attention.
Yeah, reports suggest the gun allegedly used was powerful, apparently vintage, and proving difficult to trace, which, adds layers to the investigation about where it came from.
And politically, the reaction was immediate and, well, divided.
Sharply divided. The House quickly passed a resolution honoring Kirk, calling him a courageous American patriot, a symbolic gesture from the GOP condemning the violence.
But not everyone agreed with that characterization.
No. 58 Democrats voted against the resolution. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was one of them, and she was quite vocal, saying the resolution was an attempt to whitewash Kirk's legacy, pointing to his history of controversial and often inflammatory statements.
So even honoring the victim of violence becomes deeply politicized.
It really shows the depth of the polarization right now. Everything is viewed through that partisan lens.
And that polarization is playing out in the media world, too. President Trump's feud with the late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. Kimmel got suspended.
Yes, following some controversial comments Kimmel made in a monologue, ABC suspended him.
Yeah.
And the reaction from other comedians was swift.
They rallied around him.
Pretty much. Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, others in late night came out strongly in support of Kimmel. They framed it as an issue of free speech, the role of political satire, and potentially dangerous pressure from the administration.
And a U.S. senator got involved, too, Ted Cruz.
Yeah, Senator Ted Cruz weighed in, but he directed his criticism at the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, and its chair, Ajit Pai.
What did he say?
Cruz accused Pai of pressuring ABC over the Kimmel situation, and he used some really strong language, likening the SEC's alleged methods to those of a mafioso.
Wow, mafioso.
Yeah, he argued it represented improper government interference with media content and independence, especially when comedy targets the powerful. It's become a big flashpoint about where the lines are.
Okay, another cultural clash involving free speech and politics, an Irish band from Canada, Kneecap.
That's right. Kneecap, they're an Irish-language rap group known for being quite political, often with Irish Republican themes. They were barred from entering Canada.
Why? What was the official reason?
The official reason cited alleged links to UK terror charges from decades ago. Charges the band strongly denies and calls totally baseless.
But the band thinks there's another reason.
They do. They argue the real reason for the ban is to silence their pro-Palestinian views and their criticism of Israeli actions. They see it as political censorship, tying it to historical efforts to suppress Irish political voices.
And they're fighting back.
They are. They're pursuing legal action against a specific Canadian member of parliament who publicly tried to link them to groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. So it's become a fight over artistic expression, political speech, and historical context. Tag 3.2 shifts in health and wellness policies. All right, health news. And there was a really significant and apparently quite chaotic policy shift from the advisory panel at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, regarding COVID-19 vaccines this week.
Chaotic how? What happened at the meeting?
Well, reports suggest the panel seemed really conflicted. They actually postponed a scheduled vote on the hepatitis B vaccine recommendation. And then they reversed a decision they'd previously made about the MMRV vaccine. That's measles, mumps, rubella, varicella.
So signs of disagreement among the experts.
Definitely seems that way, reflecting maybe broader tensions around vaccine policy in general right now. But the biggest news was the change to the COVID-19 vaccine guidance.
What's the new recommendation?
The panel voted to no longer recommend the COVID-19 vaccine universally for all adults.
Wow, that's a major change from the past few years.
It is. It signals a shift towards managing COVID more like the flu, focusing recommendations perhaps more on high-risk groups rather than everyone.
Was there anything else? A change to how you get the shot?
Yes, and this was apparently quite debated. They passed a measure that now requires patients to consult with a healthcare provider before getting a COVID shot.
So you need to talk to a doctor first, not necessarily a prescription, but a consultation.
Exactly. No prescription needed, but you need that provider consultation step. It moves it away from the mass vaccination site model towards a more individualized doctor-patient decision process.
Which could be good for individual tailoring, but doesn't it add a barrier, potentially making it harder for some people to get vaccinated quickly, especially since most severe cases are still among the unvaccinated or vulnerable?
That's the debate, right? It reflects an evolving approach, treating the virus as endemic and risk-based. But yes, that added step, that consultation requirement, could potentially slow down uptake and might be a hurdle for access, especially for people without easy access to healthcare providers. Balancing public health goals with individual choice and access concerns, it's tricky.
Indeed. Okay, moving to another health topic. High blood pressure, hypertension. There's a simple fix that's not being used enough.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. We're talking about salt substitutes specifically, ones based on potassium chloride instead of sodium chloride.
Potassium instead of sodium. And these actually work well.
Incredibly well. Numerous large studies show that using these potassium-based substitutes significantly lowers blood pressure. And the impact on health outcomes is stunning. They reduce the risk of stroke by about 14% and the risk of death from any cause by about 12%.
Those are huge numbers. For just switching your salt, why isn't everyone using this stuff?
It seems to come down to two main things: taste and awareness. Some people just don't like the slightly different flavor compared to regular salt.
Okay, fair enough.
And the other big barrier is just lack of awareness. Many people, and maybe even some doctors, don't realize how strong the evidence is for the benefits of these substitutes, especially given how cheap and readily available they are. It's a massively underutilized public health tool.
Good to know. And finally, a cool piece of science about exercise and appetite. They found the molecule responsible.
They might have. Scientists identified a molecule called lactophenylalanine, or LAC-Phe for short.
LAC-Phe, and what does it do?
Your body produces it during physical activity, especially more intense exercise. And it seems this molecule travels to the brain and basically tells it you're not hungry.
How?
It appears to quiet down the neurons in your brain that signal hunger, while at the same time, it activates the neurons that promote feelings of fullness or satiation.
So that's why sometimes you're not hungry right after a hard workout.
It could be a key reason. It's a direct molecular link between exercise and appetite suppression. And understanding this pathway could potentially lead to new ways to help manage weight or treat obesity down the road. Pretty exciting. Hashtag 3.3 financial and business dynamics.
All right, let's wrap up with some key moves in the business and financial world. A big generational shift in media this week.
Huge. Lachlan Murdoch has officially taken over from his father, Rupert Murdoch, at the helm of the family's global media empire.
We're talking Fox News, The Wall Street Journal, major outlets in the UK and Australia.
Exactly. It's a massive transfer of power. And it immediately raises questions, what will Lachlan's editorial direction be? How will the political relationships and influence of these outlets change under his leadership? It's the end of a very long era.
Definitely one to watch. In the energy tech space, a British company is spinning off a very successful division.
Yes, Octopus Energy, which is a major renewable energy supplier in the UK and beyond, is spinning off its software platform, Kraken Technologies.
Kraken? What does it do?
It's an AI-driven platform for managing utilities, billing, customer service, grid optimization, all that stuff. And it's been incredibly successful.
How successful?
It's already managing something like 70 million customer accounts globally and generating $500 million in annual revenue. The projections for its value, if it goes public through an IPO, are up to $15 billion.
$15 billion.
For utility software.
It shows how valuable that digital transformation piece is becoming in the energy sector. Big money in making utilities run smarter. It's interesting. Now, a story about market shifts. The robot vacuum cleaner. Invented in the U.S., but now dominated by China.
It's a classic case study, really. The U.S., specifically iRobot with the Roomba, basically created the category.
Right, Roomba is iconic.
Totally. But if you look at global market share now, Chinese companies like Roborock and Ecovacs hold almost 70% of it.
70%? How did that happen? Why did the U.S. inventor lose so much ground?
It seems to boil down to speed and features. The Chinese companies have been incredibly aggressive with R&D and rolling out new models very quickly.
What kind of features?
Things like advanced laser mapping, LiDAR, better AI for avoiding obstacles, docks that automatically empty the vacuum's dustbin, even some that mop too. They kept adding high-tech features, often at very competitive prices, and marketed heavily online.
While Roomba maybe got a bit complacent.
Perhaps. The pace of innovation from the Chinese competitors was just relentless. They captured consumer interest and built brand loyalty by constantly offering the next new thing. A tough lesson in staying ahead in hardware.
Yeah, sounds like it. And finally, just a quick check on the markets overall, the S&P 500.
Despite all the geopolitical turmoil and shutdown threats we've talked about, the stock market seems relatively unfazed. For now. Stock futures are stable, and the S&P 500 index is continuing what's been described as a massive $15 trillion rally over the longer term.
So investor confidence is holding up.
It appears so. Suggests that, at least for now, the market believes corporate earnings will remain strong despite the headwinds. #outro.
Wow. Okay, that was a lot. We covered a huge amount of ground this week.
We really did. And if there's one theme, it feels like friction. Everywhere. Friction in science pushing boundaries. Friction in politics, internationally and domestically. Friction in tech between ambition and reality.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. When I think back, two things really stand out as surprising or just, well, mind-bending. First, that neutrino detection, 200 PeV. The idea that one particle caught deep under the sea could hold clues to dark matter or the biggest explosions in the universe, that's just incredible.
It really is profound. For me, the starkest takeaway this week was seeing that deep split in global diplomacy over the Middle East laid bare. You had France calling the Gaza offensive disproportionate and recognizing Palestine strategically.
Right.
While the U.S. vetoes a ceasefire at the UN, and a UN commission releases a report using the word genocide. The diplomatic lines are hardening, and it feels like strategic interests are really overshadowing unified humanitarian action right now. It's deeply concerning.
It is, and that actually leads perfectly into the final thought we wanted to leave you with this week. It connects a couple of those U.S. policy moves we discussed.
Right. Think about the two really transactional policies from the Trump administration we highlighted. First, that huge $100,000 fee on H-1B visas, basically putting a massive price tag on skilled foreign labor. And second, President Trump's ongoing negotiations over TikTok, where the deal seems to involve forcing the sale to American stakeholders who then get control of the algorithm and most of the board seats, essentially neutralizing foreign risk through a corporate takeover.
Okay, so a high cash price for visas and political control demanded for tech access.
Exactly. So the question for you to ponder is this. When access to the U.S. market or access to U.S. jobs for skilled talent becomes defined by this kind of high-stakes political bargaining and massive financial cost, is technological innovation itself becoming just another transactional commodity in this new global landscape? Are we moving to a place where wealth and political alignment matter more than pure skill or the potential of the technology itself?
A really critical question about the future relationship between technology, economics, and geopolitics. Something to definitely keep thinking about.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
For enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.